I hear it all the time. Kristina, don't get political on your channel. Well, when it comes to affordable housing, this is one of those things I can't keep my lips shut about. So let's talk about tariffs and what it's going to do to affordable housing, because it ain't pretty.
By the higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come into the
higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to have to pay in shops.
The number one argument I get from most folks when it comes to these tariffs is that anything that we import, we can make here or get here. They say we have enough trees here to build all the homes here in the United States. We don't need to import it from Canada and other countries. Au contraire, mon frere. Even if you were to take, and this is a real argument from real people, they want to take down all the trees that are in our national parks to build houses more affordably because we're no longer importing. Here's the thing. We don't have the right kind of wood. The kind of wood that we need is called soft lumber. And a lot of that is in federally protected lands.
As much as the national forests are a recreation place for many people, they were designed to be a renewable source of timber for this country. Right. So we need to treat them like that.
You got to think of the logistics of this. You just don't walk into a forest and start cutting down trees and expecting that it go to the sawmill and call it a day. You're going to have to get the right kind of equipment out there. You're going to have to get the right kind of sawmills out there. You're going to have to get the right kind of labor out there. It's years in the making. It isn't just overnight snap your fingers. Okay, now we're going to do this ourselves. Have we not seen what's happened to the Amazon rainforest enough? It's going to ruin ecosystems and the chain reaction of events that was going to happen because you took down the national forests. I mean, we would do irreparable damage. Just because there's a bunch of trees in the forest doesn't mean it makes a house. It isn't all good wood. Anybody that builds houses will tell you that. Certain trees have to be a certain age before you cut them down to make them into a house. Let's be realistic about this. And even the NAHB, who has said many times, they even contest that this is not a great idea.
And Buddy carried the message of, look, okay, tariffs, we don't love tariffs. But we get it. This is what the president wants to do. But how about we have a long-term trade agreement with Canada, especially on lumber? Right
now, thank God, they have not put lumber under the biggest blanket of tariffs. But this is what the NAHB said about it. The U.S. relies on lumber imports to meet about 30% of its domestic demand. The National Association of Homebuilders said lumber is exempt from tariffs, but could change according to the new report from the Commerce Department. Canada is one of the major suppliers of lumber in the U.S., with about 80% of its U.S. softwood lumber imports being sourced from that country. The report indicated that import taxes on lumber for U.S. northern neighbor could more than double this year, and that would affect tiny homes, modular homes, traditional homes, any home that's built with wood. That is going to affect the price. By the way, the NAHB was not a happy camper when it came to all of these tariffs coming about. They supported this administration before they got in. And then after they came in and these tariffs came about, a letter went out. I'm pretty sure the administration didn't respond to it. I'm just going to skip down to the meat and potatoes of it. We have a serious concerns that the proposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico will have the opposite effect by slowing down the domestic residential construction industry. Then it goes on to say, an ongoing challenge facing home builders is the cost and availability of building materials. Since January 2021, inputs to residential home construction saw prices increase just over 30%. Our sector relies heavily on the diverse, cost-efficient supply chain for building materials such as lumber, steel, gypsum, and aluminum. While home building is inherently domestic, builders rely on components abroad, with Canada, Mexico representing 25% of building material imports. Imposing additional tariffs on imports will lead to higher material costs, which will ultimately be passed on to home buyers in the form of increasing home prices. Further supply chain disruptions from increased tariffs coupled with increased demand for materials could hinder rebuilding efforts in areas affected by natural disasters, which you have pledged to help rebuild as quickly as possible. This letter went out in January of 2025, and we've seen tariffs being pulled back and put back on. And the thing is that uncertainty with home builders is pulling home builders, local builders, small builders, big builders, all of them pulling back from their idea of building more housing.
There will be fewer housing units built, rental and for sale. Full stop. Like there's no getting around that.
Which restricted home building right now is a terrible idea. We still need, and it's an estimated between 3 million to 5 million housing units. And to replace them with just rental units is a terrible idea, in my opinion. We need a generation that has the ability for building wealth, and doing it with rental properties to fill in the gap is not the best idea for them in their future. Not renting from Wall Street. This is not a great idea. The National Association of Home Builders realizes this. And if we're really trying to solve the issue, putting tariffs on building materials for affordable housing isn't going to help the issue right now. The uncertainty that continues to happen is not the way to get it done. And all it's doing is stopping and slowing down production. Anybody that's building new homes now feels this uneasiness of actually how much is it going to cost. They can't even give them a good rough estimate. And if you look at the contracts right now from home builders, they even have an addendum on there that this price can change with the cost of tariffs. So they can adjust the price even though you negotiated for a certain price to have that house built. You as a consumer do not like that. If it was me, I would only buy a house that was already built. But that's me. I'm not telling you what to do. This is not financial advice. Don't get me in trouble for that.
Studio.
He says uncertainty from tariffs have also caused supply to go down, saying it's more difficult for suppliers to plan out economically viable projects.
So let's talk about cement. Now, we make a lot of cement here in the United States because we can mine the limestone and it comes into the United States, and it isn't one of those products that necessarily has to come from somewhere else. But we can't keep up with the demand. So we have to import some cement, and that comes from Turkey, Canada, Mexico, Vietnam, and Greece. So now you can expect your driveways that need to be built, those will become more expensive. All those concrete footings that you need, that will become more expensive. Any of those 3D printed houses that have a secret mixture of cement, that will become more expensive. It is going to trickle down into everything.
Approximately 7% of all goods used in new residential construction came from a foreign nation.
But let's talk about some other building materials that are going to go up in price, making your affordable home a lot less affordable. And that is steel. So a lot of like tiny homes, prefab homes, they have a steel shell. And that steel shell, the steel isn't coming from the United States. It's coming from places like China, Mexico, Canada, South Korea, and even Turkey. I didn't know that one.
Canada as by far the biggest exporter.
There's other products as well that will be affected by these tariffs. I'm talking about things like windows. If you needed to replace windows, window glass, anything like that, do it now, because aluminum is imported here into the United States. Roofing, siding, gutters. I mean, think of all the products that you have around your house that has aluminum around it. If you were thinking about getting that new HVAC system, I assure you there will be a tariff on it. So go ahead and get it now before it gets really expensive. And we can't forget our wiring. There's so much wiring that is made with aluminum. Most of our aluminum comes from where? Guess. I'll give you 2 seconds.
Okay, so Chinese production has gone through the roof, and China has been pumping out loads of aluminium around the world. To what extent the US is dependent on other countries around the world? The higher this line is, the more dependent America is on imports.
And then our second importer of aluminum, Canada. We're not getting hit as hard with Canada tariffs right now, but that's only a matter of time. I mean, all of this can change in a minute. It always does. And that makes the market uneasy, and it's making it very difficult for a lot of suppliers to decide what they're going to do for the future. A lot of them are buying all this stuff ahead of time. I talked to a guy who's an HVAC and went ahead and bought a bunch of different components that he knew that he was going to need for this summer. He's already pre-bought them because he knew it was going to take a hit on his customers. So he didn't want to absorb that cost right now. So he went ahead and bought a bunch of mini splits and other components that he knew that he was going to use. And this is the story that I'm hearing from a lot of home builders right now. Oh, and speaking of home builders, the traditional home builder right now is so nervous about this whole thing with the tariffs. A lot of them, especially in my area, are pulling back from building single family homes, which is going to cause more of a problem because we do have a housing shortage. But what they are doing is building homes for Wall Street. They're doing those build to rent type of housing. So they work for a company that will just say ABC Construction. ABC Construction is called up and said, hey, we have a neighborhood we want you to build. We're going to have you build 100 different townhomes in this area. And we're going to go ahead and pay you a flat rate. If anything happens with the tariffs, we're going to go ahead and pay it for you. Just go ahead and build those for us and we'll write you a check. It's a lot easier for a home builder to go ahead and know that they have that job security. As much as I hate the idea that home builders are having to do this because it doesn't help the affordability affordability crisis.
It helps Wall Street's affordability crisis.
But it doesn't necessarily help the individual buyer. I can understand why a home builder is doing it. If you had this sitting on your back with the tariffs, wouldn't you do the same thing? They're in a tough place right now, and they can't build affordable homes if they don't even know what the cost is going to be next week, because they keep changing their mind every 5 seconds on what's going to be tariffed and what's not.
In the meantime, there will be a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs as these negotiations are ongoing.
I think there's one thing that a lot of people didn't consider when it came to these tariffs and the stock market reacting this way, was what was going to happen with the 10-year Treasury yield. I'm not going to pretend that I'm an economist by any means of the imagination, but I can see and talk to other people that at the beginning of this, they said that most people, most heavy investors, whenever there's turmoil in the stock market, that the 10-year Treasury yield usually comes down, and that we'll see a reflection of the interest rates. And at the beginning of all this, that's exactly what happened.
What happened in the bond market overnight, the spike in yields on the 30-year and the 10-year bond, which showed that people were dumping our bonds. And who were those people dumping our bonds? Japan.
And when they started dumping it, that made that percentage rate go higher, and that made mortgage interest rates go higher. All of this uncertainty is not good for affordable housing. But if you were on the fence on getting anything affordable, this would be the time to do it. I hope for many of you that you were looking at some of these houses before this trade war started, that you were able to lock in your rate at 6.5%.
If you have a mass sale of bonds, that means people are losing confidence in the U.S. economy, on the ability to do deals with us.
Now let's talk about something that is going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people, but it is the God-honest truth.
President Trump's hardline stance on illegal immigration, which many believe is the real root behind this shallow pool of migrant labor. 4 out of 5 companies have reported a serious shortage, according to the National Association of Homebuilders.
The National Association of Homebuilders has said flat out that a lot of our home building is done by immigration and immigrants. And if you don't believe me, because it's not coming from me, it's coming from their own statistics, I want to show you this chart and show you exactly how much of our home construction is dependent on immigration. Plaster and stucco masonries, 61% comes from immigrants. Drywall and ceiling installers, 61%. Roofers are 52%. Painters and paper hangers are 51%. Hazardous material removal is 48%. Carpet, floor, tile installers is 45%. Construction laborers are 42%. Brick masonry is 42%. Construction trades is 34%. Insulation workers are 33%. Carpenters are 32%. Cement masons and concrete finishers are 30%, are dependent on immigration. We have a tradesman shortage of qualified construction workers. Now we put in all these immigration policies that are deporting a lot of the people that were building our houses. So all that's going to do for affordable housing is make the costs go up, because in order to get other trained tradesmen in those positions, they're going to ask for a lot more of this. And that's just going to make affordable housing go up even more. We've already seen it with manufactured homes. A house that used to be $75 per square foot, without the land, by the way, is now $100 per square foot for a mobile manufactured home. You add the tariffs and the lack of labor, and those costs add up, you're going to be looking at $125 per square foot by the end of this year. Easily. And I'm being conservative. And I know I'm going to get a ton of hate, but I don't care. Honestly, somebody needs to say it. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Expect to see the cost of new construction go up significantly.
I criticized the previous administration, and I will criticize this one when it comes to affordable housing. This tariff situation is not a good idea for affordable housing. And that's all I care about, is you finding the most affordable house that you can live in. Go ahead and put your comments in the comment section below and let me hear what you have to say. Let's just be civil about it. To watch more videos about the affordability crisis here in the United States, go ahead and watch these videos right here. My name is Kristina Smallhorn, your real estate whisperer, and I tell you all this because I believe everybody deserves an